we have with us on the phone, I believe, is Daysi Calavia-Robertson. Daysi, are you there?
Yes, hey there.
Hey, how you doing?
From Newsday.
Good. Yes.
From Newsday, right.
From Newsday.
I always have to have a good producer to remind me of things I forget. So I was reading the story that the story, is this in the business section of the paper? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Well, right now it's online at newsday.com. It will be in print this Sunday as the cover of the business section.
Okay. All right. And it's the high cost of childcare forcing Long Island parents to make tough choices. So this is quite an extensive article, too. You really did a lot of work there.
There was a lot to say on the topic.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, since you wrote the story, why don't you let our radio audience know what we're looking at?
All right. Well, the high cost of daycare on Long Island is unfortunately squeezing many Long Island parents who cannot afford the services. And now these are not only low-income families, many of who are already getting help from the government and via government subsidies for childcare, but we're talking about the middle class that maybe cannot qualify for subsidies because they're making too much money, quote unquote, but these are the families who cannot afford care for their children.
Right.
And then the other side of the token, we have the providers that, are definitely not getting rich off parent fees and are also having a hard time meeting their expenses because of the cost of living on Long Island, property taxes, minimum wage that has gone up 3 times in the last 3 years and will continue to go up until 2021, and a long list of other expenses that they face too as business owners.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective because when we look at the title of your article, it looks like the Long Island parents are the ones that I'm screaming, or I'm getting stuck in this and it's bad, but I think what it really illustrates is that the whole thing, all the way through, not only are the parents having a hard time making ends meet, but so are the people who provide the child care. So
Yes, all around. Right. Unfortunately, it's one of the child care experts, industry experts that I interviewed referred to it as a broken system. And it's definitely a problem across the country. But, because the cost of living on Long Island is so high, it definitely intensifies the problem in this area.
Sure. And the middle class gets caught in the middle. strangely,
no pun intended.
Strangely enough, yeah, right. Only because some of them, and when you say they make too much money, well, they make too much money based on what they're allowed to make before they get a subsidy. So it could be a couple of dollars over the line as far as...
Definitely. That is definitely true.
Of not being eligible. But, when I first read your article and, you mentioned middle class, and I remembered that the current administration defined middle class people as making $450,000 a year. And
that's just laughable.
Right, and my response was, that's going to be news to a lot of Long Islanders who consider themselves middle class, but by the textbook definition, may not be.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it is. It's a big problem. You mentioned one lady in here who has one child, and she said she didn't want to have any more because she really can't afford to, the daycare, and others who said, listen, I'd give up my job and stay home. But that's just not a reasonable answer either.
Yes, and it's funny that you mentioned that mother that was profiled in the story, the one that decided to only have the one child, because another part of this, which I didn't have space, and, this is what happens sometimes, we only have a certain amount of words per piece, and this was a longer feature, but even then, it's not enough to really address every single area of this issue.
Which is why
that the birth rate on Long Island is down.
Right. Okay.
And this is a part of the reason. If you look at the numbers and the studies, census data, then the birth rate on Long Island is down. And one of the key factors that experts point to is the fact that it is so expensive to live here, and it is so expensive. Child care is so expensive that many families are deciding, well, we're either going to have one child or have no children, or maybe we just have to move elsewhere, and it's just sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really is, and I'm sure this has been going on for a long time, and there is really, there's no, what can I call it, a program or anything in place to help anybody with that.
There isn't, and I think that my hope and the hope of a lot of people that are in this industry, parents, providers, as well as advocates and nonprofit organizations, is that just through the dialogue and through exposing this problem more and more, that it will kind of just open the eyes of people in power, legislators, governors, and other policy makers that can really, step up to the plate and address this problem and put their heads together, maybe with people in the private sector, to come up with a creative solution.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I guess it was years ago, where they actually, companies would supply some form of daycare. People could bring their kids to work, and there'd be another area where they would watch the children. That would be part of either
the solution.
Yeah, right. It's like your health care is through your company, and personally, I'd love to see that attachment broken.
I think a lot of families would be happy if more employers started to offer some type of child care services, but I think currently the number of businesses that do that are still in the minority.
Oh, sure, certainly. Well, for them, it's merely another expense.
They
don't care what name you put on. It's going to cost me money. I'm not a fan. Let's say that right away. But I mean, companies in one breath will tell you that you're a valuable employee, but we can't do that.
Yes, I mean, you try to look at least I, as a journalist, I try to look at every side of the story, and it's just really difficult here. There are a lot of different problems, and you think, well, what if they did this? But then it's like every solution brings forth a different problem, so it's complicated.
Right. Well, you know what? I think that's true in general, that when Congress passes a law to fix something, they create two more issues. I think that's true across the board, not only with this issue, but what's your experience growing up? Did you go to daycare, or did you?
So that's another part of this that I wasn't able to address. But basically, when I was a child, my grandparents took care of me, and so I didn't have to go to daycare.
Right.
But you'll find that as women have become more and more, a valuable part of the workforce, that now, for instance, my mom is still enjoying a career that she loves, and so she is not able to take care of my kids.
Right.
So the grandmas now are working grandmas that are still, many of them not at retirement age, and are enjoying their professional lives and can't stay home taking care of grandchildren. And so I think there's been that shift as well, where past generations didn't have this problem as much, or it wasn't as evident because most grandmas were at home with the kids.
Well, most grandmas didn't get the opportunity to have a career.
Exactly. They didn't have that opportunity.
And I also want to let the listening audience know that, Grandma isn't working just for the fun of it. Grandma's probably working because she needs to.
Exactly.
So this isn't Grandma choosing herself and her fun over her grandchildren.
Of course not.
Because I come from a generation where you only needed one parent in the house working.
Yes. And that's another part of it. So the man, one of the people that I interviewed, this man is working 3 jobs to support his family. And so it's not like in the olden days, how you're saying that the man could just have a regular 9-to-5 job and support his family. Like, those days are gone, and I honestly don't know that they'll ever come back.
Well, you know what? I think that for us, I don't know. It's sad to me that we can say those days are gone.
Well, Bill, if I just chime in really quickly.
This is Zach, Daisy.
It's just
Hi, Zach.
Hi, Daisy. Maybe in a different community, that situation might happen.
Well, it might, but it's much more rare than it's been traditionally.
What are you talking about? Like the dad working and the mom
staying home.
Oh yeah,
raising the kids.
Yeah, I would say maybe in more rural areas, probably, but definitely not in suburban or urban areas. Definitely not.
Well, in a rural area, you may be able to. It may be more affordable to do that. There may also, the opportunity in a rural area is going to be slim to none.
And then, of course, you got to realize that more women are obtaining college degrees.
Yeah. But here's an interesting point that Daysi brings up is that not only are the people who are trying to use the daycare, being affected or that need daycare, it's the providers. If they're getting better opportunities in other places, why would they open up a daycare?
Of course, you're right.
When this one woman in Freeport she has a daycare, and it's, must be servicing quite a few people in the neighborhood. And she's been doing it for years and has not taken home a paycheck.
Yes, in 3 years. That was pretty incredible to me.
This woman is sacrificing her life for her neighbors, in essence.
And for the passion of working with the children and caring for them, many of the providers, that's the common thread. They all really genuinely care about the kids, and they have this passion to be in this industry despite knowing that it's a low-paying industry where they're not going to really have much professional advancement for themselves and for their families.
Well, I think that people who need child care need to create a political action committee, just like a big company would do, and get somebody to go down to Washington and start knocking on doors. And I think you would have a groundswell of backing from people all over the country.
Definitely.
I really do. I think that would be, although it takes time to organize, and they're busy with the kids, but I think that may be one of the only answers. I really get the feeling that the people who make our laws for it, they don't know how we live. They really don't. I don't think they can identify.
There's a disconnect.
Sure. I don't even think they can identify with this problem. Which is the issue. I don't know.
But hopefully they read this article.
Yeah, well,
or they watched the video. Yeah. And
they're listening to my show now, and
they're listening to your show.
And you made a great point too. I wanted to bring that out to the audience. Is that Daysi made the point that they only give them so much room when they get to write a story, and that there are other facets of that story that show up that may not get mentioned, and that's why we get to talk to you on the air, because you can bring those things up that you didn't necessarily address in the story.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I think that you're doing, a great service to all your listeners.
Well, you guys are doing the dirty work. You're getting all the news and the stories, and to us, that's big. That's really big. So
someone's got to do it, right?
Yeah, and someone's got to do it well. So you're doing that too.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I think this is a really big issue, and it's like a quiet thing. People don't think about the family that gets up and has 4 or 5 little kids. Well, mom and dad are going to work. Where do these kids go? Well, this one goes to
and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think there's a lot of shame involved with it. Just in doing the reporting for this, there were many parents who wanted to talk to me, but they didn't want to be on the record. They didn't want their names in the paper. They didn't want to have a video done of them with their family where they're explaining what they go through. And a lot of them said, they have that shame. They don't want their friends to know that they're struggling. They don't want their boss to know that they're struggling.
Well, I think, let me interrupt you this time. I'm sorry. But I think one of the things when I look at this story and people say, well, it's tough. Okay, what's the first question you're going to ask people? You're going to ask people how much money they make.
Yeah.
And, I think, right?
It's hard. People don't want to reveal that.
Well, because I don't think people are making the kind of money that we would assume they are making by how they live. I got a brand new car.
That's a different part of it.
Exactly. So, yes, very interesting. Because I see, the couple that you mentioned, and I'm not trying to point them out for any other reason. But hey, a combined income of $180,000. Hey, that's pretty good.
Yes.
That's really darn good. So I don't see anybody having a problem telling that. But what if a family's making, $65,000 and really scraping by, and maybe, I don't know, maybe she sells cookies and, to make extra money.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to pull the curtain back on that lifestyle. And I think there are more of those than we know.
I think so too.
You know, it's kind of sad because people suffer silently with a problem like this because they don't want to be embarrassed about their situation. But in effect, they really shouldn't be because everybody else is experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, more than they realize.
Right.
I think once they start talking about it and then, their friends or their neighbors can be like, well, I'm going through the same thing too, and it just becomes more of a support system where you don't feel like you have to have any shame because everyone's having the same shared experience.
Exactly. I agree with that. I think that's probably one of the things that stops this from being addressed, is people's reticence to really share what's actually going on out there. But hey, it's a great story, and just to remind everyone, you can see this online at Newsday.com, or you'll see it in Sunday's paper, and I think it's the lead story in the business section.
Yes, it's gotten a lot of great feedback, so we're very, very excited about that. And yeah, we always encourage people to check out Newsday.com /business and check out all the great content that we have there for you guys.
Yeah, very good. That's really, really cool. Well, Daysi, I thank you so much for calling in and getting to speak to you. I wish my show was longer because we could go for a while.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday.
You too. Enjoy. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And we do want to thank Daysi, Calavia-Robertson, and Newsday, of course, for making the folks available when we get to talk.